Welcome back, everyone. In this video, we're going to take the form that we've created up to this point, and we're going to be able to submit the data that we're acquiring in that form and load it into SharePoint. So let's go ahead and get started. Inside of our forms folder, we've created a folder for the lures. And what we're going to do is we're going to create another folder there, and this is going to be our API folder. I highly recommend that you utilize this API folder to create your functions that are going to be essentially passing all the information into SharePoint. The reason for this and the biggest selling point for me is that you have a organization, and if this application were to ever be moved, it would be far easier to just update one location with your new API and to have to go through all of your forms and containers and make the changes there. So let's go ahead and continue. We're going to create a post API file. And inside this file, we're going to be adding some code that will allow us to actually load the information to SharePoint. So let's go over to the documentation. And we're going to be basically adding an item just like it says here. So let's go ahead and do our imports, just as recommended in the documentation. We don't use SPFI here, we use SP because we're using an older version of PnP. Now that we have that, we're going to create our function. So our function is going to be called addLure. And addLure is going to accept a data object, and the data object is going to be of type lure's form type. If we look back at the container here, you'll notice that lure's form type contains all of the fields that are being used. And what that's going to return is a promise with the results of the item that has been added. And since this is going to be a promise, we're going to return new promise. And we're going to create obviously an async function that's going to return or resolve or reject. Basically what that means is that if the promise fails, then you obviously want to reject that with a specific error. Let's create a variable, and we're going to call it addItem is equal to await sp.web.lists.getByTitle, and our title is called lures. And we're going to get the items, and we're going to add data, which is the object that we're passing from our form. And with that, we'll resolve our added item. And just so that we can define whenever the error happens, let's put that in a try catch, shall we? So let's copy this, move it over here inside of our try, and inside of our catch, we're just basically going to reject it with our error that was returned. And if we look at our documentation, we're following what it says, sp.web.list, get by title, item add, and obviously our JSON would contain the properties that we need. So that would take care of our function to post the information into SharePoint. The next thing that we have to do is in our lures container, we're going to add some things here to make it do what we want. The first one is, let's go ahead and add form state. And form state has a few things that we can use. One of the things that I'm thinking we should use is the term or the Boolean is dirty. We can use that. And we can use is submitting. And we're also going to be needing handle submit. So let's put that here. So handle submit. Now, the next thing that I want to do here is create a submit function. So let's create a function to do that. On submit is going to be an async function. And the async function is going to be receiving data, which again is type of lures form type. This is to have the ability to have type safety. And what we're going to do is we're going to await our promise that we just created in our other API file. So we're basically importing the add lure function from our API file. So to add lure, we're going to pass our data object. And then for now, we're just going to alert that the form was submitted. Next, we're going to wrap our form the box within the form provider with a form tag. And let's wrap that in this. And for our form, we're going to be adding an onSubmit functionality. And what's going to be passed into onSubmit is handle submit from the hook form, which you saw that just became active. And the function that it's going to be utilizing to handle the submit is the onSubmit function. So let's add our onSubmit function. Awesome. Now that should take care of the submitting portion of the form. And of course, we'll have to add a button. We wouldn't be able to have a submit option without a button. So let's go ahead and add a grid section for that. So grid item, and we're going to set it equal to 6. And inside of our grid item, we're going to add a button. It's going to be of type submit. And we're going to be setting it up to have a variant of contained. And obviously button is underlined because we haven't imported it yet. So let's import it from material. And inside of our button, we're just going to put the word submit. And that should handle our submission of our form to the SharePoint site. One of the things that we brought in was is dirty and is submitting. Wouldn't it be nice if we could take those values and utilize them inside of our form in this manner? So button has the ability to be disabled. What is dirty, what that is referring to is, has there been changes to the form? And clearly, if there hasn't been any changes to the form is clean. So is dirty would be false. If there has been no changes, then logically it would probably be a good idea to set the button to disabled. You wouldn't want them to click on something if they've done absolutely no changes. For disabled, we're going to say if it's not is dirty or is submitting is true, meaning the form is currently being submitted. If either of those two things are true, then we want to set the button to be disabled. Otherwise, go ahead and leave it enabled. Again, is dirty by default is going to be false. So in order for us to instantiate if it's true, we're going to take the opposite by putting the not false, which would make it true. I'll give you like a falsy or truthy value in that scenario. And then if it's submitting, then you want to set it to true so that it's disabled. So that should take care of it. Let's go ahead and start this by typing npm run start servers. Give it a moment to load. And I've already set up hot reload. That's another video that I just did. And while we wait for that, why don't you go ahead and click on that like button? I'd really appreciate it. I believe I have this form already loaded. And let's go ahead and set some dummy information here. And we submit. The form was submitted. Let's go back and look at our list. Refresh that. And there's your list item that you just added. That's going to do it for this video, everyone. I'd like to thank you for coding with me today, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching. If you find this video helpful, give it a like. If you think someone else can benefit from it, please share it. If you have any questions, please post it in the comments and subscribe. It's free for you, and it really helps me out. Finally, if you can, go ahead and click on that bell icon to get notified when the next video is added.